Tracy, you want to start tonight?
Sure, you bet. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. My name's Tracy Crockett, and I have lived in Bluffdale in Springview Farms for about 10 years now. I'm grateful to raise my family here in Bluffdale, and I think the thing I like most about my neighborhood is all of the trails that I have that I get to access. My hobbies, anything that is outdoors, I love. So I'm grateful for that. Let's see, I have my master's degree in elementary education and was a teacher for several years with the Jordan School District and taught second grade, and I'm grateful that I had for that opportunity. I am currently a residential real estate agent and help people find homes, and one of my favorite parts of my job is when clients, they call me up and they tell me how much they love their home and how much this move has changed their family's lives. The schools, the community that they're in, and nothing makes me happier. And so to be able to have the opportunity to help create a city where people live and they love where they live, and we're aware of all the different items that make a great community, looking at transportation and housing and making sure that we have the correct retail for our taxes, all of the things that impact us. I look forward to that opportunity. I started earlier this year being on the Mayor Citizen Committee as the secretary, and just really fell in love with the service and that goes along with it. And then was appointed to the Planning Commission and currently serve on the Planning Commission. And I look forward to hopefully earning your vote and getting to know you and being able to represent you here in our great city. Thank you.
Thanks, Tricia.
West side of the city. We've lived here about 12 years. We moved here 12 years ago this coming January. Right, Michelle? Okay. And I have a bad memory. She remembers better than I do. I retired 2 years ago after 27 years in public safety. I worked for the fire department, and through that time frame, I also had some time in law enforcement. I now own 2 small businesses that I run out of my home. One's a consulting firm, and the other one, we actually have an office in South Jordan. We sell radios and things to the fire department and police departments would need. We moved here to Bluffdale because we liked the large lots. We liked the space between us and our neighbors. We had horses at that time. Just really, when we drove into Bluffdale the first time we were looking at homes, we felt like we had come home as we drove down 2700 West into our neighborhood. And we've loved every minute of it since we've been here. We've watched the growth in the city. When we first looked at our house in Bluffdale, before we bought it, Bluffdale was a lot bigger. The area that was out there by Harriman was part of Bluffdale then. Between the time that we looked the first time and the time that we bought that house, the great disconnect had occurred, and we lost that. So in the meantime, losing that part of the city and watching what Harriman's done there and having concerns with that, we're excited about the growth that's happened on the east side of Bluffdale. And I really think there's a way to make the communities and their unique needs fit better together as a city, and that we as a city really can address those. I had the great opportunity of working with the city staff here, and I have to tell you that sometimes I hear people say negative things about them, but I've never had that experience with our city staff. I think we have incredible people that work here. They work hard, they're stretched thin, and they need more resources to do what they're going to do. I have a bachelor's degree in public and emergency services management, and so I also think I'm uniquely qualified with 27 years as a government employee and with a degree in public management that I can bring a unique perspective to the city council. And my wife and I are empty nesters as of 2 months ago, so I'm in a different position to put time into serving the city now as well. So, thank you.
Thanks, Rick. My name is Mark Hales, and my wife and I have lived in Bluffdale. We have first lived in Perry Farms, and now live on 146. We've been here since 2012. And from my history, about 20 years experience working for or with the government, different entities. I started out as a land use planner, was a zone enforcer for Utah County, and then a planner there, and then was a planner up in Washington, Yakima County there, and then finished off being a transportation planner in Utah County for Mountain Land Association of Governments. So I've worked in county and regional planning agencies, working with both mayors and county representatives and boards and whatnot. And then I went to law school, and my first job was going back to Utah County and worked as a clerk and did mostly work again in land use planning and violations there and giving writing opinions for the commissioners down, the county commissioners. And then after that, I took a little break and went to American Samoa. I was a prosecutor there for a year and a half, where I did every case from too many coconuts in the back of a pickup truck to first-degree murder, rape, arson. Worked with the FBI and basically was an attorney for the entire island of American Samoa. Did negotiations with immigration departments throughout the South Pacific independently on my own and with those countries. And then came back, and from that point, I was in private practice doing the fun work of divorce law and all that drama that goes with it. But since I wasn't working for the government, I volunteered for the government, and I've been on the Board of Adjustments for West Valley City and then here in West Valley. And now I chair the Historic Preservation Commission, where I focus on preserving what's great about Bluffdale, the history, the buildings. Mel Spencer's there, he serves on as well. And hearing the stories that Mel tells about all the great things in the history of Bluffdale is my favorite part of the meetings that I sit and chair on. I also am a judge in West Valley, been that for about 9 years, and have handled about 4,500 to 5,000 cases throughout time, just as a volunteer, just because I love to spend my time there. I've been on the board of directors for Camp Costa Palos, which is the #1 charity in the United States for the children and adults with disabilities. I was there for 4 years, helping to raise money so that we can provide a great place for kids to come and learn and experience life without limitations. And so I love Bluffdale, and I'm grateful for the opportunity here to be served and give Jeff the time.
I'm running for Bluffdale City Council, the 4-year seat. A little bit about me. I played football for the University of Utah and graduated with an economics degree. I own an insurance company called Rocky Mountain Insurance. I coach high school football for Skyridge High School in my spare time. What made me decide to run for city council is you look around the city. We have no retail. We have no commercial. You have to drive to other cities to go get food. You have to go shop in other cities. All our tax dollars are going outside of the city. We have 2 places where our tax dollars are really making an impact in the city, and that's unacceptable for a city as old as we are. We've got to do better, and I looked at it and said, you know what, this is the time I'm going to get back to my city, and I'm going to try and make a difference. So I decided to run. The big thing that we need to do as a city is we need to be more economically friendly to any prospective commercial development that wants to come into the city. Number 2 is we got to start having a better reputation. Banks look at our city and they go, you know what, don't do business in Bluffdale. Go to Riverton, go to Harriman, go right across the border. Stuff gets approved a lot faster in other cities. We've got to start being a lot more friendly and business friendly in the city. Another thing that I see as a big issue, our tax increases the last 2 years. We've had tax increases back-to-back years. If we keep going at this rate, people aren't going to be able to afford their land. The big difference between us here in Bluffdale and other cities is most people have acres or multiple acre lots. Well, in order to protect these acre lots, we've got to keep our taxes low. It happened in Alpine, taxes kept getting higher and higher, and then lots started getting subdivided. I don't want to see that in Bluffdale. I want to protect the 1 acre lot identity. And I appreciate everyone's vote. Thank you.
Great. My name is Dave Callis. I am currently on the city council and was elected about a year and a half ago. So unfortunately, if you're on a 4-year term, you get a little bit of a break, but I didn't get much of a break, so I'm at this again. I thought I'd give it another shot. I've enjoyed my time and appreciate the support in the past. My wife and I grew up in Utah County in Linden on a large property and raised animals there, and then studied at the U. And later, my wife and I, when we had children, decided to move to Bluffdale. And the reason we picked Bluffdale was probably the same reason a lot of you picked it. We loved the sort of rural heritage and the quiet neighborhoods and safe neighborhoods. And that really attracted us here. And we bought a home in Perry Farms and we've lived there 6, going on 7 years, and really enjoy it there. We now have 4 kids. When we first moved in, we were expecting our first, so we've been pretty efficient in time. And our kids are Perry Farms. That neighborhood's been great for us because of so many children and great neighbors, and just one of the things that we love about Bluffdale. I decided to run for the city council because I wanted to give back and to contribute, but also I did have some concerns about how we were developing. I knew that growth was coming, and so my concern was really looking forward, how are we going to manage that? And how do we maintain these things that we love about Bluffdale and that I love about Bluffdale? And so I decided to run. I think we need to focus on economic development in really in key areas where it's conducive to what the market needs, but it is also not disrupting to the communities, and both new and established communities. And I've seen, going through the budgeting process, we have some challenges ahead of us as a city, and we really need to look at how do we finance the needs of the city. And we're not an extravagant city. We don't have big rec centers and libraries and these fancy things. We keep it pretty simple, and we try and keep the taxes low, and I appreciate that. But just these basic services, we need to ensure that we can pay for them without a huge burden on residents. And so I think that having economic development done well and done right is important, among other things, and I'll stop there.
Pleasant Grove, one of the reasons I ran is I was worried about some of the things that I experienced growing up in Pleasant Grove. I didn't want them to happen in Bluffdale. A lot of that had to do with the infrastructure and the roads that were kind of just falling into disrepair, and the tax increases and the utility increases they kept experiencing. I was pleasantly surprised when I was elected to find that the mayor and the city staff did an excellent job of keeping our roads up to date. There's still a few in disrepair that are on the list for updates coming up, but a little bit more of my background. I went to Snow College and met my wife. Ended up transferring up to Utah State, and I got my master's degree in structural engineering. I'm currently the owner of Finished Grade Engineering, so I work with cities and on a regular basis to design roads and utilities and things like that. So I've always felt that engineers should be more involved in their communities, and I felt like if I had that opinion, I better step up and do that myself. So hopefully I can lend some of my expertise to the city and help in those regards and prioritize maintaining infrastructure and roads. And I'm really grateful for the city staff, all the support that they've given us as the council. I think we have a great city staff. Grateful for the mayor. I think he's done a lot of great things for the transportation in the city and maintaining the roadways. It's been great serving with all the different council members. When I started, I served with Justin Westwood and Alan Jackson. I'm going to forget names because I'm nervous here, but served with Ty Nelson and James Wingate. James ended up moving, and Megan Callis took his spot. Now we got Wendy and Travis on the council now, and the best thing I can say about the councils that I've served on is I feel like that there's been a unity. Even though I've been one of the few representatives on the council that's east of the river, I live up in Bluffdale Heights, just on the edge of Independence. I feel like even though we've had some things that we've disagreed on, I think we've all come together to make important decisions. And for the most part, I think we've been able to work through disagreements and things, and it showed that unity, and hopefully through that unity on the council, that's helped the city come together. We've got a few challenges to unite the city, and some of that is geographic, overcoming the divide of the river and just the hills and the dales of Bluffdale. But it's a great place to live. I'm not here to make Bluffdale better because I already think it's great, but I want to prioritize getting commercial wherever we can. That being said, I want to follow the general plan. We've already identified the key areas in the city where good commercial can be successful. Thanks.
I am the 11th of 13 children. I grew up in didn't know whether we were in Riverton or South Jordan. They kept fighting over us, and then when South Jordan annexed, they took us. And I watched what South Jordan did. I watched how they tore down existing homes to make commercial areas. I don't know if you remember going to Holt's service. So I've seen how things can change. I started working for Harriman City in 2005, and then I moved into Bluffdale. I started working for Harriman in February, and I moved into Bluffdale in October of 2005. I came here because I had 30 horses that I needed to have at my house. Okay, I had to get rid of most of them. But it's a way of life that is dying, and we've got to preserve it and fight for it. And while I was working for Harriman City, I got to know everybody over there because it was pretty small, and it just went nuts. And I know what they have planned. And my intention is to protect our borders and to preserve what we have. I ran for city council because I watched the disconnect, and I saw a house divided. And I'm proud to say that ever since I've been on, I'm trying to do a third term, that we've had unity, and you haven't seen us in the news. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm not trying to make a better city. I'm trying to preserve what we have, but I understand that we need to be able to pay for what we have. And we need to bring in retail and capture as much as we can to help pay for that so that we don't have to do tax raises. But to say that we're not going to do it is crazy because it has to be paid for some way. And so we're trying to do everything we can to attract everyone we can in the key places. And it's been an honor to serve you. I love being able to pledge allegiance and to pray with my fellow citizens at least twice a month. I love it, and I appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Question that a couple of them here that kind of cover the same topic. They've asked about the financial donations that have been disclosed on your statement or what you guys do put in there. They're asking if you can be impartial regarding those donations, if those topics come up, or those Salt Lake realtors, as like one that's pretty common with most of you, but they want to know if those donations, again, if you can be impartial, it will not affect your decisions on the city council.
Perfect. Well, thank you for asking this question. I think it's something that needs to be addressed. Yes, I did accept money from the Salt Lake Board of Realtors. I didn't promise them anything. The reason why they're donating to my campaign is I sponsor realtors. I am a big sponsor for the Women's Council of Realtors. I support women in the workplace. And when I met with them, they said, hey, we want to get back to you. You've given back so much to us and our community that we're going to help you out because you're running for a campaign. All my contributions that come from them is less than 10% of what my campaign total will be. I didn't promise them anything. No one owns me. No one tells me what to do. Everyone knows exactly where I stand on issues. If you look at all my flyers, my mailers, everyone can hold me accountable. And that's what separates me, is you can hold me accountable for exactly what I want done in this city. I'm not influenced by anyone. No one can tell me how to vote. I'm not a conscious voter. You know exactly what you're getting out of me. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, so I've received some donations, and I think the important part is that we have we have a system where you disclose that and people can take a look. It's on the city's website, and I'd encourage people that are interested to go and look at that and review it. I received a donation from my dad, his business, my wife's former employer, my employer. So and campaigns cost money. There's all those obnoxious signs that you see around town that I can't wait for them to be gone. those are not cheap, and you have to, you know, get your name out, and I've tried to send something out in the mail as well, so I've used those donations to do those things, and I've never been asked by anybody that's given me a donation to have, you know, will you do this or will you, you know, do that? I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't be willing to do that. And I don't, you know, I don't think that, you know, I guess I've just never seen that either. So to me, that would be a really odd thing to do. But I've been pretty clear when I've campaigned where I stand on issues, and that's how I think I've been voting on the city council. So I do have a track record that you could look at as well, and I stand by those votes and those decisions I've made. And I think when I make those decisions, it's what goes through my mind is what's in the best interest of the city, of the residents, the people that are impacted by my decisions, and so that's how I consider my votes.
Lloyd? Yeah, I've also got some contributions from the Salt Lake Board of Realtors and also the Salt Lake Home Builders. In my profession, I design things. I'm a civil engineer, so when they called me in to conduct an interview, I explained what my platform was. They had a few questions for me, but in general, they're just trying to figure out who I was. And after I just talked with them, they determined that they wanted to make some contributions, which I was happy to receive. Campaigning's not that fun, so I'll be glad when this is over in 3 weeks or so. You have to go out there and ask people for money and tell people how great you are, and that's not necessarily something that comes natural to me. But anyway, as far as the contributions, I got about $1,000 from the Salt Lake Board of Realtors. They helped me with the mailer. They gave me a walking list. Salt Lake Home Builders Association gave me $250. Not at any time have they ever approached me during my 4 years on the council to ask any certain favors. In fact, from election to election, I've never even talked to them. They've never approached me. So, yeah, I feel like if there's any question about my track record, I'm happy to clarify. The way zoning is gone, there was a question about a commercial zone near my neighborhood that didn't end up going through. And I'll just clarify right now, I would embrace commercial next to my neighborhood. Part of that, I think my mic's cut now, but part of that discussion was putting a gas station next to my neighborhood, and I was for it, but they also wanted to do warehouses, which I was not for. Over in Independence, we have a lot of warehouses, and we don't want any more warehouses, so we were prepared to zone the whole property as destination retail. I feel like I've used my 2 minutes.
No, close.
I'll just keep going then. So I'll just clarify that. I embrace retail, even if it's by my house. That's what I prefer. Porter Rockwell Boulevard is where I live. To be continued.
Todd?
4 years ago when I ran, I was interviewed by the Board of Realtors and I received $1,000. I did not use it and I gave it back to them. This term, I did not respond to them when they wanted to interview me. I have received contribution from Bluffdale citizens. And I've also saved my signs from 8 years ago. And the ones that have been hit with the weed whacker are closer to my house. I hate the signs. To me, that's city promoted vandalism. They're trashy. I hate them. Can't wait for them to come down. I am beholden to my constituents. I'm grateful for the support that I've been receiving, and that's who I answer to. And in the past 8 years, the Board of Realtors has never tried to convince me of anything. So that's all.
Tracy?
So I too have been given money from the Salt Lake Board of Realtors, but I am a proud realtor. I know a lot of times real estate agents get a bad rap, very seriously, and I always, my job is to, make my clients, to be able to make the process of moving, which can be one of the most stressful things people do, to make that the best experience that they can have. And so that's my duty as a real estate agent. And I've never felt like I would be beholden to anyone other than, the citizens, to make, to do what's best in, for everyone here, who lives here in Bluffdale. I do contribute to the realtors to help, I'll donate to their political causes. One of the things that they do recently is they're trying to fight transfer taxes. So they're trying to, the state is trying to have everyone pay a transfer tax when they sell their home. And that would hurt everyone here in this room. And so some of the causes that they do, I think, really impact us for the good. And those are the type of things that, I want to help promote so that everyone's not paying money like they do in New York when they sell a home. So, I just could never imagine the realtors who I work with ever coming to me and asking me to promote something that I didn't believe in. I could just never see that happening, and would never consider that. And if I did, I certainly wouldn't, consider taking that money. But, I've seen a lot of, we'll just end it there. Thank you.
Thanks, Warren.
I received an invitation from the realtors and the builders to come and be interviewed and receive money and consciously declined that. I don't feel right accepting money from people who are not Bluffdale citizens. My campaign being funded by myself, one of my neighbors who lives on Redwood Road, $50 that came in the mail, and it wasn't my birthday, so I assumed it was for my campaign. It didn't have a name. And I did take $100 from my niece who's a town council member in Bridger, Wyoming, and she's just thrilled that there's somebody else in the city that's trying to get political office. So, and this is the one place that I disagree. I don't think that it's right that local campaigns cost as much money as they do. And I really think that the political action committees, which is what the Builders Association told me they were, should stay out of our politics.
Thank you. Mark?
I received invitations by both the Utah Builders Association and the Realtors. I went and interviewed with them, and they asked me questions of, do you support high-density developments in Bluffdale? And I was like, no. And I didn't get money. I don't know if they asked anyone else questions. The question they asked me is, do they support more development of the acre lots? I said no. And I didn't get money. Beyond that, I got, I think, $50 from my mom. And that's it. So I'm beholden to her. I have to call her every week and tell her how I'm doing. And she's got back from Italy, and I talked to her yesterday about her trip to Italy. And I'm beholden to no one. Because I speak for no one else, but I have taken no money from anyone else and have asked no one for money, so that I don't feel obligated, if they have a problem, to support them. Even if they're a Bluffdale resident, even my neighbor. So I've talked to a lot of people who have had complaints about things that roads been built or their zone's been changed, and I don't want to have to be beholden to them if something that's coming up, I have to be obligated to vote for them because they gave me $5. Actually, I found a quarter yesterday knocking doors, and I gave it back to the neighbor on their house, so I didn't take their money unknown. So, no.
Thank you. Okay, this question will start with Ty. The question is regarding commercial and economic development. There's 2 or 3 things I'll put into this, try to answer several questions. One is, are you in favor of economic development? What and where would you put economic or retail space? And do you have any unique qualifications that would help promote that retail space?
Okay. Part of this, sorry you guys, because I'm going to steal all the good answers. We have our main corridors, 27th, Redwood, Port of Rockwell. Those are the best places for economic development. We have as a council, as long as I've been aware of it, have been working towards that and trying to improve and to entice business to come. And we have done the very best I think we can. I'm sure there's improvements we can make, but we've worked hard to try to entice them to come. My unique, I'm a city employee. I've worked for a little, well, when I started with Harriman, they were a little city. There were 35 employees, similar to Bluffdale. It went crazy after that, and then I went and worked for Provo for 2 years, claustrophobic, and I would now work for West Jordan City, third largest city, but they don't know it yet. They still think they're a country, so I fit in. I have been a gardener on Temple Square, a carriage driver, and I have hundreds of cousins. I have lots of people that I know that live and work in various places. I can even go up to Washington and I still run into people that I know. And so my circle of influence, I haven't found the end yet. I have a master's in public administration. I'm looking forward to pay it off. So, thanks.
Thanks. Let's go to Boyd next.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about economic development. The main focus that I have over the next 4 years, if I'm lucky enough to get your vote, is to try to get an interchange off of I-15. There's going to be a couple in between us and Draper and Lehigh, and I want to do whatever we can as a city to position ourselves to get one of those interchanges. As part of that interchange, that gives us an opportunity to develop a portion of the city that's kind of off to the side, and develop some high-density commercial. We can get some office buildings and some shopping centers and develop a tax base. If we're able to develop that in more of a high-density commercial type atmosphere, we can offset the taxes for the rest of the city. My goal would be to keep Bluffdale as it is and develop the areas that are identified in the general plan. Those corridors, as mentioned by Ty, Bangerter and Redwood Road is a vital one, 2700 West, 146. We've got some development happening now. They're building buildings. We've got a couple of applications in at their ranches, so hopefully we'll start to see some economic development there. There's been the Maverick, but as I see the vision of Bluffdale and where it's going, I'd love to concentrate on the gravel pits. I'd love to see transit-oriented development over there, take advantage of a front-runner station. I'd love to even see like a trolley that went between the front-runner station and Bluffdale up to Draper, where there's going to be a track station. Get people circulating. Whether Bluffdale chose it or not, we are a transportation hub. Everything comes in and out of Bluffdale. I like to say all roads lead to Bluffdale, and I mean that in a couple different ways. Transportation, but all sorts of different life backgrounds as well. I think we've all found our way here, and I think it's a great place because of the people that are here. And I'd like to create spaces where we can gather and shop and meet our neighbors.
Dave.
So like I said before, economic development was one of the reasons I originally decided to run for the council. And it's been really a pleasure working the last year and a half with the mayor and the council members on that issue. I think that's been one of our biggest areas of focus, and we've spent a lot of time and effort on economic development. To me, what my vision is really aligned with what we've seen in the general plan. We have a few key areas where we need to focus on and make sure we've got the right zoning in place, make sure not just the zoning is in place, but what's allowed within those kinds of zones. And what kind of businesses, can we have a say in what kind of businesses we bring, what the look and feel of that development is, so it benefits our city, it doesn't detract from the our heritage and our identity. To me, the big key area is going to be, although we have some pockets of potential, I think we're going to be focusing on, as Boyd said, the Port of Rockwell area. The bridge will be coming soon. That area is going to be great. The thing that is great about Port of Rockwell is it bypasses, for the most part, most of the city. And so it's a great area to divert traffic. We've talked about the roads of Harriman connecting, which I think everyone's opposed to. Let's funnel that through Porter Rockwell. We've spent a ton of money on that road. Let's make Porter Rockwell the boulevard where people can pass through. They don't have to drive through our neighborhoods. They can drive on this road. They can stop and get gas and groceries. We get those sales taxes. Therefore, we can keep our property taxes low. That's my vision. That's really what I want to focus on, is getting those things in place, and then making sure the system of when somebody comes in, wants to put a store in, that's a quick process for them. Thanks.
Jeff?
So this is the whole reason why I decided to run for Bluffdale City Council. Is we've got to have economic development here in the city. What I bring as a unique angle to it is with my company, Rocky Mountain Insurance. We work with commercial developers all over the state. All the big commercial developers, we do their insurance. They were the ones who told me, hey, we've got troubles with banks, stuff getting approved in the city. This needs to change because Bluffdale could be a hot spot. When that prison relocates, it is Draper's property. A lot of people think it's Bluffdale's. It's Draper's property. But if we fill Independence with commercial development, it's going to keep our taxes low. I met with a few weeks ago one of the developers. They're looking at putting a grocery store in Independence. What they're disappointed in is that Lux Pro property. It's an awesome property, ideal for having a grocery store there, but no, it's warehouses. And the guy who owns it is only willing to do joint ventures, so there's no commercial development going in there. We cannot fail as a city anymore failing with projects like this. We've been talking for 12 years, we're going to get commercial development in here. Well, it hasn't happened. This needs to change. We need to change the focus of the city. I will say the last 6 months, I've seen more positive movement getting economic development here than probably ever before. But we need to bring commercial development in and take advantage before Draper takes advantage of it and builds it right on that side. I also would say Porter Rockwell and Redwood Road, perfect spot for a gas station. You're going to catch everyone going from Saratoga Springs, getting on to Bangor Highway. 2700 West, there's already a few things going in there. I think it's an ideal spot. I don't like the Hobby Lobby case right across from it on the east side of the road. They're hideous. It's an eyesore of the city. If we're going to allow commercial development, it's got to be retail that's actually bringing sales tax dollars into the city, not man caves for people to go play in or have little office spaces. We only have so many spots we can take advantage of, and as a city, we need to come together, we need to work with them, and we need to do better. And I believe in the next 4 years, we are going to be one of the most positive economies in the entire state. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you, and Rick and everyone. Comments are, I agree with Eli's comments that we have great places to build commercial, highlighted by where Redwood's coming in, Bangor, where Porter Rockwell is being developed. And again, we wish we could, put where the warehouse spaces are, where in Independence, those have been great places that they did in a long time. And decisions there, we could be ideal places for grocery stores, but we have to look beyond what's currently there. And so, along Redwood and on the east side of Redwood and Bangor, where the ranches are, we'd love to bring those in and do what we can to develop it. I don't think the city's done anything recently to avoid that. I know on the west side that's been changed, and I know that's hurt some neighbors because the plan was neighborhood commercial, and we need to be really careful when where we put commercial, and if we're destroying the people that relied upon certain things and have lived there for 20 years and have been affected by those changes greatly, because we got to find transitions where commercial is and where there's people that have their acre lots and find ways to make sure that commercial isn't going up. Because the best way to preserve acre lots is not to have commercial right next to them, because soon the acres lots across the street from commercial are going to go commercial, and we lose more and more of our homes. But we have to have commercial. We have to bring it in. We have land for that. And we are focused on the land that's open for commercial, especially there in the ranches and where Porter Rockwell is being built, and down along Redwood farther down. Those are great places for commercial. And I'm not an expert in real estate or I have connections with banks. I studied planning, so I know where things go. But the priority is making sure we're not ruining our city at the same time we're developing the future.
Thanks, Warren.
I definitely definitely support economic development in Bluffdale, but I think we need to be cautious about the way that we do it. As a city council, I think our primary responsibility should be to protect zoning and to manage the city's master plan instead of change those as at a whim, as people think it's time to change. I think if somebody comes in, I bought a 1 acre home or a lot with a home on it, expecting that my neighbors would have that as well, and so I would be passionately opposed to infill development because that's not what I moved to, and I think everybody in Bluffdale bought a home anticipating what their neighbors would have. So that said, I would support the development at the same place as everybody else has at the obvious intersections. I like what Dave and Boyd have said, that we're going to try to push that around the city instead of having traffic come through the city. I'd love to see a grocery store, but maybe something that fits a small town feel a little bit better, like the Lynn's or Lucky's instead of a Walmart or a Smith's Marketplace. I really think we have a lot of opportunity here to grow. Something I feel strongly about, though, is we don't need any more storage units, whether you call them man caves or not. And I don't think we need a lot more warehouse space in the city. What we need is some retail, some restaurants, some places that help us to stay here in the city and spend our money here rather than going to another city to do that same thing. And I also would like to say I think we have incredible city staff that knows where they need to go. We as a council need to give them the tools and the funding that they need to make that happen. So, thank you.
Tracy?
All right, so yes, I am in favor of economic development in Bluffdale, and we're at a crucial time to make sure that that happens here. I also agree, like the general plan, it has the 5 nodes where it's commercial is zoned to go, and I think that's one thing that we need to really watch is our zoning, because if it's, from being on the planning commission, one thing you know is if it's zoned, you have to allow it. So it becomes just a matter of does it fit the zoning? If we want it there or not, if it's zoned for it, you have to allow it. It's the law. And so zoning is super important when it comes to economic development and commercial. So we need to be real careful with that. I think we have some real exciting things going on. 146, hopefully that hotel is coming soon. Super exciting project. Especially where if it comes before the prison moves and we can, have that there is super exciting. As you've seen, we've had the space for commercial for years, nothing's come in. Sometimes, a lot of that has to do with market conditions, and it takes a long time to get these things done. So I do think it's super important for the city council now to be planning, like where the gravel pits are and for that interchange, because if we don't do that now, we're going to miss the boat on it, and it's not going to happen. And so while we need to focus on having the steps that we need to be a business-friendly city and, to support our staff to be able to, help get those businesses in, at the same time we're doing that, we need to make sure that we're looking to the future so that we're planning accordingly so that we can have the Bluffdale that we want.
Thank you. Dave, we'll start with you this time. This question's been touched on a little bit in your last stuff, but it is concerning zoning. Zoning about saying 1 acre lots, changing the 1 acre lots to adjust for other developments, and also following the general plan and how that works. And some people have asked why, if there's a general commercial, it should be residential commercial, or how that should follow the zoning plan. So it's mainly about planning 1 acre lots and the commercial development coming in, any changing and those kinds of things.
Well, zoning is it's the tool we use to determine the use of the property, right? And the master plan is this is our vision for what's going to happen in the future. If you look at our master plan, and if you haven't, I would encourage you to get on the city's website and review it. And every 5 or so years, that has to be updated. But we've identified there, both in the master plan and in our zoning, what are the key commercial areas we want to focus on. Now, some of those areas were defined as neighborhood commercial and some as general commercial. What we have found through experience is that general commercial, they were pretty much the same thing. There was just a few minor differences, but there was no interest from any of the potential tenants that would come in, a grocery store or a gas station. They didn't want neighborhood commercial zone. And so we had to look at and decide if we want economic development, if we really want to collect some sales tax revenue, we're going to have to look at more of general commercial. And so in those areas where the master plan has shown that there would be commercial activity, that's what we focused on. And along Porter Rockwell Boulevard, we have a lot more flexibility because it's undisturbed, it's gravel pits. So we have a lot more ability to be creative, and we don't need to be disruptive with our zoning in there. So along Redwood Road or 2700 West, some of these other gateway areas, my idea that, well, I shouldn't say just my idea, but an idea that we have worked on in the council is using other kinds of zoning tools or form codes to minimize impacts when development does come to those areas.
Hey Boyd, we'll go you next.
As far as the acre lots go, there's not a lot of property left to develop on the west of Redwood. So I feel that those acre lots are protecting themselves. And I know Warren kind of corrected me last time for saying that. And I'm not saying that they don't deserve protection by the council. And I feel like the council has been very protective to them, to the point where we even dissolved the variance board? The Board of Adjustments, just because they approved something that was less than an acre. And so I feel like the track record is there. I'm happy to support the acre lots. There's some decisions looming behind the church, Baptist church? What was that called? Bible church. The Bible church, excuse me. And so that will be a big decision to be made there. My feelings on that is, as I look at any rezone, my first resource is the general plan. If I see very low density residential there, then my thought is to keep it that way. But if some things has been planned something else, specifically commercial, that's when I look at rezones as being possible. So I think the general plan is key to look at things like that. I think the one area that as a council we have deviated from is on the neighborhood commercial versus general. And that's a difficult choice to make. It affects all the residents around it. It's not a popular choice in those neighborhoods, and you feel for them because you don't want to minimize what they go through. It does impact them. But as a council, that's something that we've made, and we try to minimize the impact by adding additional roads and street traffic lights and things like that. So we try to listen to the residents, but in the end, try to make the best decision possible for Bluffdale, and to try to secure retail and commercial in areas that are designated in the general plan. Just one key difference that I will say about the general and the neighborhood commercial is the time restraints, and we moved that, and I'm out of time now.
You know, when I first was on the council, I had several senior citizens talk to me about how they bought these, like 40 years ago, these nice big lots, thinking that as they got older, they would be able to subdivide their property and whittle it down to a leisurely, non-maintenance portion. That was kind of the plan. My parents, we grew up on 20 acres, and as my sisters got married, my dad would sell off some to pay for it, and emissions and things like that. And so there are still some citizens who have the larger lots that they would like to be able to subdivide them. I think what they ought to do is just, as the younger kids that are in a different lifestyle, trade homes, and that way they could downgrade and they could upgrade. It's a good plan. But we, in talking about 27th and over there's it's interesting, on the west side of 27th, somebody made a proposal of an idea, to bring in some retail, and we were all excited about that, and then they always bring in the hook. And they say, but the backside, we want to, subdivide and increase the density. And we're like, oh my gosh, sorry, not interested. And we asked the residents, and there was a resounding no way. We'd rather have our taxes go up than have to subdivide them. And then another idea on the east side, and they're wanting to, already? Good.
Thanks, Pat. Go to Tracy.
So I think we definitely need to protect our 1 acre lots. I think from everyone that I've heard, no one is looking to allow subdividing of those lots. Those 1 acre lots are the reason why a lot of us moved here to Bluffdale. I know my husband owns a couple horses, and we keep them on our neighbor's property because we don't have the acre lot. And I want those 1 acre lots to be there for one day, that possibly we could buy one and live on one. That would be my husband's dream. So we want to protect those. And the zoning is super important. Having our general plan. Bluffdale is a very different city than it was 5 years ago, and it's probably getting to be about time where we look at our general plan again. And it probably is going to require some updating. That's going to be super important that we hear from the citizens and hear from everybody, when we go to do that. But I think it's important as a city council to use that general plan that we have, and to follow that as a guideline for how we develop our city. I think it's an exciting, super exciting time, but the zoning of that, like I think I answered in the last question, is just so important. And when we have the general plan to do that, if it comes up, and there'll be open houses and different things like that for community to be able to give their input, and that's going to be really, really very important. So.
Thank you, Warren.
You say the time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and I would say the same applies with zoning. You don't decide you don't want something in your backyard the day that the developer shows up and it's appropriately zoned. As Tracy pointed out, you can't do that. You're obligated to allow them to build if it fits within the zoning. So I feel strongly that the city council should use the zoning as a resource to bring business into the city, but also it's the tool we should be using to protect all of you. If we have zoning and we manage and maintain that zoning and don't change it at a whim, that will protect you as the residents. I can't say that if I'm elected in the next 2 years, I'll never make a zoning change, but I can say if it impacts your neighborhood and you call me, I'm going to listen to what you have to say. And I'm going to take your input seriously. But if your neighborhood is zoned, and I'm not referring to the question that's come up here, but if it's zoned in your area to build commercial and a commercial developer wants to build there, as many people can come to the dais as want to and say it shouldn't be built, but the city's obligated to allow them to as long as they fall within zoning. So let's protect the zoning that we have to prevent that from happening. And if we need to review that zoning, let's review it and make it stronger to protect you.
Mark?
I agree with Warren, and we have zoning, and we should rely upon that, especially when it really impacts. We're not talking about, the major ones are not just changing, or actually it's changing from acre lots to high commercial, and that really impacts neighbors. And I know that often when these changes are coming, and the community and the neighbors should really have a say, and I know from this experience, from this campaign, that people are really upset when there are tribalists too, and then they're told one thing and then they're lied about it, and things happen when they're said it's not going to happen, and that really impacts people, and they feel that now their neighborhoods are much busier and the traffic's really impacting them, and they're just not happy. But neighbors I've seen, just on new developments, that neighbors have got together and have worked with developers and have come up with a compromise to avoid getting high commercial right next to their homes. And they've been able to have some ease with other developments, and they've compromised with other things. That's ideal, especially the neighbors that are being impacted, they should have the greatest say as to how they're going to be impacted and any compromises. Because that's who is impacting. You know, someone who's clear across town, while they may need something, but people who are really there, their input is important. And we've got to consider how this is going to alter their lives and take away the quiet peace that they have. But, of course, zoning, we can't predict the future. We have a crystal ball, know where everything is. And sometimes what we hope to be there isn't happening, and we need to tweak that. But again, we have to avoid those who rely upon what they're told is going to be much more than what's going on so far. Again, like my experiences, again, I've done these. I've wrote jar plans. I've wrote long use plans. I've studied land use planning, both short term and long term, for years.
Jeff?
The way I look at it, this is one of the last cities in all of Salt Lake County that you can have horse property in. We need to protect that. 10 years down the road, Bluffdale might be the only place that's left. I think that it's our identity of the city. We need to keep it that way. And the way of protecting it is people moved here 30 years ago. You know, some commercial properties trying to come up against their neighborhood, they have every right to speak to the council and voice their opinion. But right now, they're having a hard time getting notified on what's going on, how do they meet with the developer. We need to be a little bit more transparent and let people voice their own opinions, because they're the ones who built there. Before that, it was a dirt field, okay? We've got to respect people's property rights. Where they decided to move their family and build their family, we need to respect that. What I would say is most of the commercial that's going to be going into Bluffdale is going to be up against Bangor Highway, out on Porter Rockwell and Redwood Road, which is going to be far away from everyone. And everything else is going to be jammed up in Independence, and everyone in Independence doesn't care. They want it right in their backyard. They want to have a coffee shop. They want to have somewhere where they can go and fill up their car. They want to have a place to go and wash their car off. They don't want to drive to other cities. And one of the big things that I hear back from these commercial developers is what we are doing now is we're zoning things general commercial rather than residential. It's not a big factor, these two zonings, but it is to them. For a city, it doesn't affect our rules. Now, if it's right up against one of our neighborhoods, yes, every single person in that neighborhood should be able to come and voice their opinion. And I don't care if we, as a city, only say that there's 4 minutes on that clock a resident gets to speak. They have every right to speak for an hour if they want. I had a supporter of mine go up there, good friend, and he was rudely interrupted by someone, and it really irritated me. And if I'm on the council, that's going to completely change. We work for the residents, and that needs to change. People up here are not representing the residents, I feel like, adequately, that we're the voice of the residents. They elect us to make their decisions, and we need to respect them, and they have as long as they want to address us. Thank you.
Thank you. Warren, we'll start with you on this question. This is regarding taxes. Part of that you probably talked about a little bit, but they want to know, people want to know, what are we going to do about high taxes? How are we going to stop that increasing? How are we going to still supply the services that the city needs without doing so? And is that a priority in your opinion of what you would do for the city council?
So a city, in my opinion, should receive revenue from 4 different areas. Property taxes, which the way state law is set in Utah, it's a hold harmless. As odd as it seems, as your property values go up, your taxes drop. As your property values go down, taxes go up. And that's the law. It's not Bluffdale City. Sometimes we think we've had a tax increase that was just an adjustment by the state tax authority. The second one is sales tax. The third one is fees and traffic tickets. And then I would say the fourth one, and the one that we should be the most cautious about, is grant funding and other one-time monies. I think that all of those need to be balanced and that the city should have revenue coming from all 4 of those sources. I don't want to see property taxes go up, but I'm willing to pay more property tax to receive the service. I would prefer to see sales tax revenue come into the city to offset those costs, but I'm not okay doing that at the expense of our small town Phil in the south end of Bluffdale. I like grants and one-time monies, but I'm afraid to spend money that we can't afford to support later with ongoing tax funds. And fees and such are great until you're the one that gets the ticket on Redwood Road. So I believe that we need a balance of all 4 of those. I believe that the city should be budgeting appropriately so that they receive their funds from multiple sources, so that if it's a bad sales tax year and another recession, property tax can make that up. But if it's a good year for sales tax, the property tax would drop. As such, I've never heard of a city lowering their taxes, but I believe the way that the tax increment works with the state, you would see that as a little bit lower on your tax form. I think that answered the question.
Tracy?
I think taxes are a really big part of the city council's job, which is the budget. Budgeting is, I think one of the biggest things that the city council is in charge of and doing, and we need to make sure that we're being fiscally conservative with our money that comes in. So, I think the city does a really good job. We run a really tight ship in the city, and I think we need to make sure that we are continuing to do that. I'm all for parks and trails and all of those nice amenities in a city. I think it makes for a happier city. But if we don't have the funds to do that, then that's something we're going to have to hold off on, until we can figure out how to get those funds with the economic development in there. As our city grows, we're also going to need more police and fire protection, and that's going to require us to look at our budget and to see, where we're spending our money, to make sure we're spending it wisely, so we don't have to raise taxes when those needs, come up. So, anything that we can do to just always just looking at our budget, making sure our money is being spent appropriately, and that we're not getting things that we want. We might have to be able to hold off on that until we can get some more of the businesses in, to get some more funding to be able to do that appropriately.
Thank you. Ty?
Can you refresh the question so I make sure I got everything?
It's regarding the taxes, if it's a priority to you, how we keep those taxes lower, and what things can we do to make that happen and still have the services for the city provides to the people.
Thank you. So my first term, we didn't raise taxes at all, and I was pretty proud of that. I thought that that was the best thing I could have done, and wow, was I wrong. As I've been a city employee, I see how important it is that you have funding to be able to do your job. I'm an urban forester in the Parks Department. When I worked for Provo, I was in the Energy Department, and that was an enterprise. And my budget was like unlimited. When I was in Harriman, my budget was $600. And that's hard to maintain your parks with $600. So you could replace like 2 trees a year. I don't like paying taxes. I moved here to Bluffdale so that I could live the dream, the same as all of you. It has changed a lot from when I came and would hang out with Dutch Crane. His oldest son is my brother-in-law, and I used to hang out with him when I was a little kid, and we'd do chariot races. But we need to not just raise taxes, as Warren said. We need to make sure we have every opportunity to bring money into the city, and we have that. This week we were informed that they went and applied for a grant, and they were not successful in every way that they asked, but some of them we got approved for the full amount. Some of them were not, and the people that they presented to complimented the city on how well they were prepared and how good they made the presentation.
Floyd, please.
Yeah, I think Warren had a good summary there. So basically, the state sets the tax rate. So year after year, the city gets the same amount of taxes. And we've got a budget and run a city based on that. So if you can imagine your own family budget, if you were trying to live off the same money 10 years ago that you have with the costs now, you can see the difficulty that it creates. There's a lot of different things out there that are costing more money. I keep talking to the room. But yeah, there's inflationary forces out there. One of the things that we're dealing with as a city is the cost of construction. We're living in a great economy in Utah right now, and one of the negatives of a great economy is the cost of construction is really high because of the shortage of skilled labor. So that's just one of the things that we're up against when we budget. The other is our property taxes don't cover the cost of public safety. And so we've got to draw that from other areas of the budget. The R&D funds that we get from the state to maintain our roads doesn't cover all the road maintenance that we have. And we've got an awesome setup with the city staff and that the mayor's put together that we touch our roads every 5 years. We keep them maintained. Over time, that actually saves us money because we're not doing costly repairs to dig up roads and replace them. We're maintaining them. We're keeping that road service life really high, so that we can keep the cost of the road within reason. And if we've got to stick to that, that's not something that we save money by not doing. That's something that it costs you money later by deferring. So.
Thanks. Dave?
Well, it was mentioned earlier, and I'll repeat it, that really the most important thing that we do that you will make your vote based off of, in my opinion, the most important thing the council will do is manage the budget. There's a lot of other things we do that are important, but this is, in my experience, the most important thing. And we're fortunate to have a great staff that has helped us manage that budget and keep costs low. And anyway, Warren talked about the 4 sources of income, and I want to mention that a little bit. Hats off to our mayor. Our mayor has been excellent in helping us receive grant funding and outside money to fund one-time projects that we couldn't have done otherwise. And he's been, if you look throughout the state and the valley, he's been one of the most successful, and I really salute him for that. So we do get some grant funding. We get very little sales tax, and we've talked about that a lot tonight. That's the other area where we can grow revenue, and that if we don't, then we then have to look at fees and taxes. And that's the decision we face today. Do we want to increase fees and taxes continually, or do we want to get more sales tax? On our budget, we have a storm out on the horizon because costs are going up for construction and maintenance, and that's my greatest concern. I'm actually quite worried about the 3 or 4 years down the road. I've seen our forecasts and projections, and we will have some major shortfalls if we don't find a way. And my solution to that is I don't want to raise your property tax again and again just to cover that. Otherwise, we have to cut services, or we have to get sales tax, and that's a balancing act. We got to decide what to do. If you vote for me, my solution is we're going to be very judicious in any kind of property tax increase, but we're going to focus on economic development and filling the gap there.
Thanks. Jeff?
Taxes are a tough subject, but if you're going to raise taxes, you've got to do it at a minimal amount. Everyone owns big acre lots. You're getting taxed really high here in Bluffdale. If you're going to raise taxes, it's got to be 2 or 3% every single year. None of these 50% jumps, 12.5% jumps. This is what kills people financially, especially most of our residents are seniors. They're on Social Security. Most of them are farmers. So that means they were small business owners. Their Social Security checks are really small. They're not higher like people who worked and were paying into it. You've got to respect the amount of money that they have, and they've been here so long, and these taxes are killing them. We've got to do a better job of maintaining our money and spending it smart. We are not spending the money smart. We need to do a better job of it. For the next 4 years, I will not vote for any tax increase in Bluffdale, period. And you have my word on that. We need to give our residents a break, and then we can reevaluate after that. I will never be in favor of these big tax jumps. They've got to be small where it doesn't impact people's livelihoods. It's very scary to me that people's livelihoods can be affected by one single decision. And we need to do a better job and respect our seniors and our elders and people who can barely afford to get by. Another thing where I can see why we keep taxes low is when Porter Rockwell Bridge goes in, we're going to get about $6 million. Okay, well, if we manage that money and we spend it correctly in the city budget, we're going to have a lot of money. And if we manage that correctly, we're gonna be able to budget it. One of the big things that upsets me is everyone tries to attack the fire department. And they say, well, you know, we've got fund services here and there, and the fire engine costs this much. Well, the fire engine came from a grant. So the money that people say it's a talking point for them to avoid their tax increase, our fire department does one heck of a job, and the money that goes to it, we're not giving them the adequate amount of money in our tax breaks. We've got to start funding them correctly because people's lives are at stake. I'm not going to let any house light up on fire and we don't have the minimal number of firefighters going to fight that house. We've got to do a better job and protect our public safety on top of it. Thank you.
Mark?
Thanks. No one likes tax increases. We just got our tax notice and things go up. But the city is one of hundreds of different people taxing us. And so, but we need to, of course, avoid all taxes. But if we can avoid increased taxes, that's the ideal. We can do that by bringing commercial in. Perfect. And I supported one of those other ones by giving a ticket. It seems like a long time ago. So if everyone got a ticket every year and paid $100, they'd cover so much money. But of course, we don't do that. Then we need to get more police. But clearly, we all want to avoid taxes, and if it lasts, increasing our property taxes and fees, and that should be the last option to pay for our city. And other money comes in from projects. Sometimes that's limited. We can't just take money from one project to receive money from and use it for anything else. Often they are assigned to certain projects. So when the money comes in, that doesn't mean suddenly we can't raise taxes. And again, I applaud the mayor for getting grants for us that far more than any other cities around us are getting combined. We're getting. So we got to maintain the process that we're doing to continue to get the funds to help us to avoid other aspects. But again, the ideal all of us are wanting to do is find that increased economic and commercial so that those sales tax can help us alleviate any other burdens that we have.
Concerning Harriman roads and infrastructure coming through to the city, how it would work as a city council, how you would deal with that, and also that as the infrastructure develops, that we don't have Bluffdale just a pass-through city, that it's more than just a drive-through place. We'll start with Boyd on this one.
Yeah, as far as, this would be really short. I think everybody agrees that nobody's for the connections into Harriman. What was the second part of that question?
Just how to develop infrastructure so that we're not a pass-through city. I guess I interpret the question, is that how we get people to stop and spend money here and do things along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, creating a destination is really the only way to get people to stop. We've got a lot of people already going through Bluffdale, and we haven't been able to take advantage of that to this point. We've got some commercial areas ready that could be developed, and it just hasn't happened. And a lot of that has to do with the market, and there's only so much that the city can do. Other things that we can do, kind of going back to some of the discussion on economic development, is plan for the future with the gravel pits, and when Port Rockwell goes through, take advantage and develop commercial areas in that area of the city that will offset the other property taxes. Just to pick up on a couple of the other ideas that I ran out of time on, but with the taxes, I'm committed to looking at taxes every 2 years. I feel like it is important to do incremental rather than doing big jumps. And just to clarify, storage units aren't allowed in any zone right now. So.
I am opposed to the connections in Harriman. I've been pretty clear on that, I think, in my literature and in my conversations with residents. And I think with the mayor and the council, we've been successful in basically blocking the 150th connection. And we've got a couple others we're working on, and that's important to us. The problem is if you were to connect those roads, they were not built, they were not engineered to handle high-density traffic. And if you live on one of those roads or right off one of those roads, there would be thousands of people who live a couple blocks away driving by. And we wouldn't, and what's worse is we wouldn't get any revenue we wouldn't get anything except traffic and potholes and more roads we have to try and find money to fix. So I'm opposed to it. And I tell people, we're not trying to block Harriman. We're trying to funnel it in a certain direction, that traffic. We've spent millions of dollars building Porter Rockwell Boulevard. That'll be connected. The bridge will begin next year. The RFP will go out for the bridge. So very soon, that road will be done. We want to funnel traffic through that road. We want them to stop at Bluffdale and get, like I said, get gas and groceries, but not in our neighborhoods. We can't handle it on the roads, and it would be super disruptive to people. So I feel like the council has been very united in this, and that's where I stand. I also would say that we're fortunate in the few nodes we're looking at for commercial development. While they are near some residents, for the most part, they're on the edges of town. So people driving on Bangor Highway can pull off and get gas and then get back on the road. We're not looking at doing commercial that pulls more traffic deeper into the city, but stays sort of on the perimeter. That would really help us with our sales tax needs.
Jeff?
So it's one of my talking points. It's right on the pamphlet that I give everyone, all my mailers. No roads will connect to Harriman, period. If UDOT comes through and they force it, well, we're going to fight it to the end, okay? The roads cannot handle the traffic. If any road were to connect, the whole road would be ripped up. One of the big problems that we have in Bluffdale right now with a lot of the roads is we've got trucks driving over weight limits, and it's crumbling our roads. And it's our own fault because we have a police officer that was here and he was weighing trucks, and it's a $1,500 ticket. Well, imagine how many of those we could get in a month and how much that would stimulate the money that we can have. But no, we don't have one right there. So I want to get another police officer that is dedicated to it. We already have the equipment in the truck for it. You're no longer going to drive through our roads overweight, and you're not going to crumble our roads anymore. It's got to happen. I can't believe we're not doing it right now, but it's something that we're going to step up and we're going to do, and the tickets from that are going to fund us a lot of more money. Another thing with connecting roads, I think we need to start working with our fire chief. He's an amazing man. He does a lot of great things for our city, but our roads up in Independence area are built way too narrow. If there is a house fire up in Independence, you're going to have multiple houses lighting on fire back to back to back. Because I don't know how they're going to get a fire engine through some of these streets. You can't even fit a car through them when there's a car parked on both sides of the road. So we've got to step up as a city, and we've got to go and fix the parking issues in Independence because, number one, it's crazy this was approved in the first place, but it's a safety issue, and I worry about the safety of our residents. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, I touch on, I drive those roads every day to take my kids to school, and it's horrible. I gotta pause. We gotta, do best to encourage the cities the neighborhoods to work on that to make those one-way roads or get to off-street parking. But yeah, actually, Harriman, no, I don't want to connect to Harriman. I don't think anyone does. I live on a really, really busy road, and I don't like it because I know how it's going to affect all of you who live on that. And so I want to make these roads residential, especially neighborhoods that are now being impacted because things are commercial. Now they're getting too many cars to their neighborhoods that isn't built for that. These are built for small residential roads, and that's what you do. Hopefully that Porter Rock will take the traffic around. I'm not as confident that it was because I stand on the roads and I see, well, about 2/3 of the road cars on 146 go to the right or straight. Only about 1/3 turn out redwood. I don't know if it's going to take all the people off. So we got to make sure that our residential roads stay residential and how to track, clearly when a business that we're going to get in and commercial, they're going to be attractive. They're going to want to make their buildings attractive so that people come in. No one's going to build an ugly building that can pass through. They're going to do everything possible to make all these buildings that are commercial as attractive as possible so they come in and stop. They're going to do that. Again, it would be bad business if they don't make sure that they are attractive to stop. And so clearly my priority again is roads, and that these roads are done right. Again, I study transportation planning, and so take all that consideration in when we're developing these things.
Warren?
Just like everybody else, I'm passionately opposed to any roads coming through from Harriman. As I drive down Mountain View and look down into what they've built, I think they've made their bed and they should live in it. I definitely don't want traffic out of that subdivision. that's west of Bluffdale driving through any of our residential roads. I applaud the mayor, the council, and the city staff for what they've already done to stop that, and I believe they have plans in motion. As a council member, I would support that and do anything I could to avoid it. The other question that was asked is what we could do to make the city a destination, not just somewhere that people drive through. We are the north side of the Silicon Slopes, which is a large development in Utah County, and I think we really have an opportunity there at the freeway interchanges and closer to I-15 to recruit in hotels and restaurants and other types of places that would generate tax revenue, give us a place to go to enjoy an evening without having to go to another city, and still keep much of that development, most of that development, out of the neighborhoods and the subdivisions where it doesn't belong.
Thanks. Tracy?
Well, I think a lot of great things have been said, pretty much along the same line, so really not a whole lot to add. Of course, I am opposed to the roads going through Harriman for the same reasons that you've heard. I think the Porter Rockwall is a great connecting road where people from Harriman can go